Hello, good morning and good evening. Good morning to our North American delegates and good evening to our Middle East people. I hope you are okay with my voice. If you are listening my voice, just thumbs up that you are listening me. Can you just thumbs up in your pictures wherever you are? Very good. Fine. So let's start this webinar on the API Q1 10th edition. Uh, My name is Mr. Asim Baig. I'm the founder CEO of this company called Meridian Quality Management. I'm an API consultant, auditor, trainer. I've been auditing API for more than 3 years and conducted more than 100 audits. I'm also a presenter and writer for QHSC topics, Six Sigma, project management. And overall, I have conducted more than 1,000 different audits in quality, environment, health and safety, food safety. I've delivered a lot of assessments, training, lectures, seminars, and relevant workshops uh, in many countries like Canada, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, UAE, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, Pakistan, India, Europe, Africa, and South Africa. I'm an Aramco and NEOM approved auditor for design, procurement, and construction projects. I'm a certified quality auditor from API, ASQ, and IRCA. I've been involved in more than 100 different consultancies, including API, Q1, Q2 projects, uh, and other quality, environment, health, and safety. And I have trained more than 5,000 people. I was lucky that I was awarded by Saudi Arabian Quality Council by them as a first quality manager of the year in 2009, and also win the Diamond Award winner from the European Society of Quality in 2015. So that's my introduction, and let me introduce my company progress, that what we do. Uh, we at Meridian Quality Management, we provide consultancy, training, and certification services in quality, environment, health and safety, food safety, and project management. We are also doing third-party inspections, whether it is required for any quality, environment, or safety aspects. Even API, third-party inspections we also do. We're also involved in engineering design. Uh, we do sustainability project for product life cycle, carbon footprints, and deeply involved in API Q1 and Q2 consultancies and training projects, including monogram licensing for relevant specs like 6A, 16A, 16D, 5CT, 5L, all kind of things, these licenses. And we also do Aramco NEOM projects for audits, for design, procurement, and construction. And we also involve in different Six Sigma improvement projects in quality. And we have provided these kind of projects in different countries and companies in the Middle East. Recently, we have started our office in North America as well. Last month, I was in Canada and we did a conference also on sustainability. These are our accredited training programs, including API practitioner course, API lead auditor program, ISO 9000, ISO 14,000, ISO 27,000, 22,000 lead auditor programs. In addition to that, Six Sigma, Yellow Belt, Green Belt, and Black Belt certifications. We also prepare quality professionals for ASQ, Organization Excellence Manager. We also provide risk management professional and safety officer certifications. In addition to that, we also provide project management, preparatory training programs, and certain soft skills courses as well. We also perform certain auditing and certification services, which include API gap assessments, API internal audits, supplier assessments, quality management system certifications for 9,000, 14,000, 45,000, 22,000, 27. In addition to that, We also do LEED certification in sustainability and also facility management system ISO 41000. So these are the uh, company activities which we normally do. So now we have to start our program. Before that, I just want to just mention about that what API is doing in with regard to the API Q1. Uh, Most of you are already aware that this API started in 1923 with the development and construction standards, and we have more than 800 different standards of API, including management systems and different product standards as well. So when we talk about change in any standard, whether it's ISO 9000 or API or any other standard, there are certain inputs. What are the inputs and why the systems are being changed? Whether it's quality, environment, health and safety, food safety, API, whatever. The first thing is the client feedback, that what client feeling about the standard and what are the gaps in between. So continuously the standard body, they are evaluating those things. Secondly, in case of API in the standard also, that they have also observed the non-conformities, type of non-conformities which are coming from different part of the world, that what are the major areas from where the people are not able to understand due to certain reasons, and major or minor non-conformities are coming. So they have to basically take out the misconceptions. I will brief certain misconception also in today's program, that whatever be the misconceptions are there, uh, that's why we do the uh, release of the standard, that for what the standard are being released to take out the misconceptions, and also due to the new technology like AI and other technologies which are now introducing. So whenever these kind of things are coming, so also these are the inputs for different changes. So let's see that what are the major changes in the standard. So these are the highlights. Uh, I will just go through with these highlights by reading these points now, and then I will go through with these detail one by one. The first thing which API Q1 has, 10th edition has given, is the more alignment with the requirement of ISO 9001, 2015, because there were certain requirements of API are exceeding the requirement of ISO 9000 and something were not alignment. So they have more aligned now. The biggest change, which I will explain in my next slide, is the change of scope of the activities, and then the definition of product, which is aligned with the expanded scope. Retention time of the period, which is now 5 to 10 years. Then there are certain outdated versions of ISO 9000, 2005, basically, and now it has given to 2015. Then there are certain clarifications, which is given for the validation of processes. Then there are certain revised word around product inspection and final inspection processes, which is also being clarified in the standard. There are certain changes in the supplier evaluation process. Prevention action has been excluded as it was there in ISO 9000. There are certain added and revised definitions. And then there are added alternatives to the traditional quality manual. So let's see one by one that what are these changes and how it will be implemented to be aligned with the API Q1 10th edition. So let's see one by one. The first thing is the title. That the old title, it is in the red. It is in the red specification for quality management system, requirements for manufacturing organization for the petroleum and the basic word was manufacturing. Now they have changed in the above, like the new title of the standard is quality management system requirements for organization providing products for the petroleum and natural gas industries, which means that the API Q1 is taking out themselves from only manufacturing organizations to other organizations as well, which are providing any product or service for API. Let's see in my next slide, which will explain it a little bit more about it, that what is the meaning of it. The scope, which is basically this specification establish minimum quality management system requirement for organizations that provide products for use in the petroleum and natural gas industry. So any company who is providing any product or any service to oil and gas industry will be a part of, can be a part of API Q1. So what is the applicability in it? So API Q1 is no longer a manufacturing driven standard, which is not specifically directed at a monogram program. So initially when API Q1 started and they converted from ISO 29000 to API Q1, major areas or the focus of the standard was for the manufacturing companies who are mainly involved in the monogram certification. But now, slowly and gradually, they have included other scopes as well. And now it is very clear that any company who is providing any product or any service to oil and gas industries, they can get API Q1, which is basically that the original use of the document was for monogram program, as I said. So over the time, use of the document for anything in oil and gas industry is now applicable. So now it includes using the document for non-specific oil and gas activities, using document for non-API products as well, which means any company, for example, a calibration company, and an IT company who's providing services to oil and gas company, any logistic company, any NDT inspection company, if they are providing any service to the oil and gas industry, they can get API Q1 certification now. So which means that they have extended the scope, like in ISO 9001 also, there are, any company can take this certification. Similarly, in API Q1, any company who is providing services to oil and gas company, now they can take the API Q1 certification as well. But definitely they have been involved in the oil and gas industry. So let's see what are the other changes. The other big change is in the quality management system documentation. The traditional quality manual, it's been not is required, which means, which was there in the ISO 9001 2015 as well, that quality manual is not a requirement. Similarly, in API Q1, the auditors are not required to ask about the quality manual, which means if you want to keep your quality manual, no problem. But it's not a requirement. Being a consultant and trainer, if you ask me, I would recommend to keep the quality manual, because I know some companies, they are involved or they require quality manual to share with certain companies for registration, pre-qualification, or some other purposes as well. So I would recommend to keep quality manual, but API Q1 is no more requiring any quality manual as such. Quality policy. Although 80% requirement are the same, but to make alignment with the API ISO 9001 2015, they are asking in clause A as a support be appropriate to the purpose of the organization. Previously it was, but now they're asking that it should support its strategic direction as well, which is basically requirement of ISO 9001 2015 according to the vision and mission of the company. So you need to a little bit modify your quality policy. In point D, which is in blue color, it should be available to the relevant interested parties as specified by the organization. Whoever are the interested parties, as you are also doing in ISO 9000, like your customers, your suppliers, your employees, your management, your owners, your regulatory bodies, certification bodies, all of them, all of the relevant interested parties, the quality policy should be available for them, and the best purpose and the best method for being recognized or being aware about your quality policy, if you can put it on your website. So this is the a little bit modification in the 10th edition. The next one is in quality plan. They said that it is when it is required in the contract. If it is not required in the contract, you are no more required any quality plan. Previously, the situation was different. But if any of your client is asking to maintain a quality plan, you have to do it. The product quality plan required by contract shall address each of the following as a minimum, which basically describe the product to be manufactured as such. So the quality plan is not a specific requirement, but whenever it is required by the contract or client, you have to maintain. Next is very easy. Previously, you remember the retention time was 5 years. Now they have changed it to 10 years, which means that when next time when the auditor will be coming, he may ask you after 1 year, may will be going to 6 years, then 7 years, then 8, 9, and 10 years. So slowly and gradually, you have to keep your record period up to 10 years. As I said that they have aligned different definitions. Previously, the reference was was in red color, which I mentioned. It was in 9000, 2005. But now the definitions are being changed and they are referring the definitions according to the ISO 9000, 2015. So we have revised all the definitions according to the new standard of ISO 9000, which is available till now. But for your information, in 2025, ISO 9001 standard is also changing. So inshallah, we will be conducting that program as well. Very interesting part. As it was in ISO 9000, they are not requiring any management representative role, which means that if any management representative is not being assigned or mentioned, it's not a non-conformity now. But if you ask from me, being a consultant and trainer, I would recommend to keep your management representative as it is, because keeping it is not a non-conformity, and not having it is also not a non-conformity. But definitely, one person, in my opinion, should be responsible for the implementation of the API Q1. So it should be there. Risk assessment and design. Previously, you remember there was a requirement in the design input that you should have a risk assessment. So there is no requirement of the risk assessment in the design input, because risk assessment as a whole has taken more emphasis in the standard. As a whole, I will be giving these examples in my next slides. So in design, there is no requirement for design input, the risk assessment. Supplier assessment. Previously, you remember, out of the 3 items, it was in part 2, it was performing first article inspection to ensure conformance to stated requirements. So it's not the criteria now. And in the 10th edition, performing first article inspection will not be considered as the pre-qualification or the pre-assessment of the supplier. It is no more. If you are doing it in addition to that, it's not a problem. But if you are depending only on the first article inspection, it will not be the case. So you need to do the other options which are available here, which we will be discussing in other slides. Stock assessment. Again, I given you in the beginning that there are certain misconceptions in the standard. That's why the standards are revised. And one of the misconception was about the stock assessment time period, that whether it should be 3 months, 6 months, 1 year. And there was always a debate between auditors and the auditees that what should be the ideal stock assessment time period. So now API has given this authority or this decision making things to the organization themselves, that you are responsible to identify the frequency of the stock assessment, whether it is 1 year, 6 months, it's up to you. So I would recommend at least should be 1 year. And then accordingly, whatever you require, it will be your own decision. So this decision is not, auditor will not ask you that what is the criteria for that. The next one is very interesting. Uh, Internal audits. And again, it was the most misunderstood clause in the document previously. And the auditors was asking that whether you are doing calibration or NDT or building process, which are basically conducted in your facility and it all coming under outsourcing. Now it's very clear. API has clarified this thing that only those activities which are permanently based in your facility by some outside supplier will be considered as an outsource. For example, you have an entity company who's providing the entity services and permanently they are located in your facility. These are called outsourced activity. But if some people are coming for some time, like calibration or even entity sometime or certain maintenance sometime, these are not outsourced activities. Only applies to those activities which is a permanent presence on site. Previously, it was not clearly mentioned in the standard. So now onward, you will consider only those companies as an outsourced supplier which are full-time, permanently on your site, and then definitely you have to conduct their audits as well according to your audit plan and considering like in, as your own department. Risk-based thinking. This is there's a lot of emphasis, although there was a separate clause for the API in the risk assessment, but now they are asking more clearly that we have to define the criteria and methods very clearly, that what are the criteria with respect to, for example, for probability and impact, and how you will decide the criticality of that risk. And then accordingly, you have to make the contingency planning. So risk-based evaluation is very much important as it was in ISO 9000. That's why they have taken out from the design input the risk validation. They have taken out the clause of preventive action because risk is more important now in API Q1 as well. I will give you some examples of how the risk-based thinking will be more taken into consideration whenever you are talking about risk-based thinking. Starting from any customer complaint. If a complaint is coming frequently of the same type, it means that the problems are not resolved and it's a big risk for you. So you have to take that particular point into the risk matrix or risk register. Similarly, if a particular non-conformity is repeating, it means that it is continuously coming and it's a big risk. Similarly, supplier, any critical supplier from where continuous problems are coming, again, you have to take it to the risk area. Internal audit, if you are getting more non-conformities from a specific clause or specific department, definitely it's a big risk for you. You have to include that in the risk register. Similarly, if you are getting non-conformity, regular non-conformities in a specific clause from API audits, again, it's a big risk. And one day a minor non-conformity can become a major non-conformity. So you have to consider them as a risk. So these are some additional points which you have to consider. And then one thing which I'm always saying, that risk register is not a static document. It's a very dynamic document. You have to review the risk register more frequently and see that how the risk are being associated risks are there in your system, which basically affecting the overall quality management system according to API Q1. As I said, preventive action has been removed. The reason is very clear, because risk management is more effectively, comprehensively manner has come. So if you are doing your risk management properly, what is risk management? Risk management is to prevent the problem in advance. So that's how preventive action is no more required. So that's how the clause of the preventive action is totally taken out. So there is no need of any procedure, any form. No auditor will be asking for any preventive action form from you onward. but definitely he will be more interested to see your effective risk register, how you are maintaining. Contingency planning is no more longer a specific requirement. So procedure has been removed. You don't have to require any specific contingency uh, planning procedure as such, because again, it's being built in the risk register itself. That whatever be the high risk items, you will definitely require to make certain contingency planning so you can build in your risk uh, management procedure. So I would recommend all of you to make your risk management procedure uh, more aligned with the API Q1 requirement, include more risk areas there, which I just mentioned it to you. And later on, after this program as well, if you need any of more assistance regarding the risk management, you can ask me, no problem. Uh, Approved supplier list. It was a very interesting question when auditor was coming. He was asking, where is your approved supplier list? So there is no more requirement to maintain an approved supplier list, but definitely most of you are maintaining an ERP where you are basically developing or making your purchase order according to your ERP, whether it's SAP or Oracle or any other. So no supplier can be added, deleted, or any PO can be generated without getting it uh, in the approved supplier. So there is no specific hard copy supplier list as required as such. Uh, Interested party, I have already given in the beginning that it is more aligned with the ISO 9001 2015. Sometimes we call it stakeholders, sometimes we call it interested parties. So you have to identify your interested parties, whether they are uh, customers, owners, employees, bankers, regulator, unions, partners of society, or any other. So 10th edition is showing it in various places, like in quality policy, it is referred as interested parties. And in the planning, the organization shall determine relevant interested parties and their requirements. And also in the management review, that overall relevant interested parties needs and expectations you have to define, and you have to meet those elements as well. So you can see that a lot of requirement of the ISO 9000 they have taken now. So most of the things which I would say 60 to 70% of the new things in 10th edition are taken from ISO 9000. The same is here as well. The knowledge management, resource and knowledge, totally a new clause. The organization shall determine the knowledge needed to provide continued operation of its processes and achieve ongoing conformity of products. This knowledge shall be maintained and made available as determined by the organization. Uh, Many companies have different resources. Some companies have libraries, whether it's physical library or e-library, standards, specifications, and other relevant documents, starting from the uh, expectations, which is called basically the organization knowledge, where people should know what exactly company do, what what are their inputs and what are their outputs. So this is required. So that's how we need to know that what are the resources and knowledge are required. So that's how we require it. And the next is risk manager. I already explained it in more detail, and it's all being defined. What we have to do is basically in more detail risk assessment techniques, identification with respect to the tools, criteria to determine the severity and the potential consequences, and the risk mitigation actions, assessment of risk, if applicable, and contingency planning. They have made the contingency planning in the procedure of the risk management itself. So that's why a separate contingency planning procedure is no more required. It will be built in the risk management process. Supplier evaluation, if you remember, it was Addendum 2, when came for the ninth edition, the risk management was already built in there, and now it's the part of the standard itself. You have to identify the risk at the beginning when you are doing the initial assessment. For example, a supplier which is not a local supplier, it's an international supplier, so you may require certain things with regard to the availability of items, whether it can be available at time. Maybe some suppliers can provide you a lead time within a month, but some suppliers require 3 months time. And what we faced during the COVID time, uh, the whole supply chain process was disturbed. So we need to identify the risk in the beginning when you are identifying a new supplier and you are doing a supplier registration for the new supplier. So for the critical purchases, it's more sort of requirement of the supplier evaluation, and you have to identify the risk severity, that how much severe is the risk. And there are two items where it is required. One is the product delivery and other is the product quality. So all that which is required is regarding the risk, but facility is always free to go beyond this minimum requirement. But as far as the supplier evaluation required, you need to consider the risk associated with the new supplier at the beginning. Another thing is the real time when you are performing the audits uh, in the initial supplier evaluation, which is basically the outcome of the uh, COVID time, when you remember all the audits were basically remote. So it is built in the API Q1 now that you can conduct your supplier audits remotely as well. But there should be a real-time audio video evidences should be there, because without those, it will not be considered as a true remote audit. Remote audit does not mean that you are just getting their documents, inspection reports, and other certifications. No, you have to do it a real-time audio video recording, and that auditor might be interested to see those recordings as well. So this is a new requirement, a new change. You remember in the calibration, previously only testing, measuring, monitoring, and equipment was there. Equipment, there were TMME previously, but now they have added a D as well, which is basically detection equipment. Example of detection equipment can be a pressure gauge, where a leak test can be done. So it can be a detection tool, metal detection. So anything which detects something, it is also included in the calibration phase. So you need to include that also in the calibration process. Risk and contingency, I have already explained you that when the organization determine a contingency plan, it is required based on the such risk. So previously there was a separate procedure required, but no, there is no procedure required. Validation of processes is very interesting. Again, they have clarified very clearly that minimum, because there was always a debate and misconception that which process will include the validation and which process is not including the validation. So now they have included, they have mentioned that minimum, these tests are included as the minimum requirement for the validation, which is non-destructive examination, NDE or NDT, sometimes we call it, building, heat treatment, coating and plating. So these are the 4 items which are required to be included in the validation of processes. And if a product specification identifies a specific process requiring validation, then only those processes specified shall require validation processes. And definitely you remember, whenever we are doing validation of processes, there are 3 items which are required: qualification of personnel, qualification of process, and qualification of equipment. Qualification of personnel means that the person who is performing, it should be qualified. Qualification of process means the procedures, whether it is a calibration procedure, whether it's NDE procedure, welding procedure, WPS, PQR, all should be certified by third party. And lastly, but not least, is the qualification of equipment, which is the calibration. So these three things are required for the validation of processes, because validation are required for special processes which will not be identified as a subsequent inspection. So we require a validation process. Very interesting in the final inspection with regard to the new technology of AI. What they're saying that unless performed by an automated system, personnel other than those who performed or directly supervise the product realization shall perform final acceptance inspection at planned stages of the product realization process. Previously, unless performed by an automated system was not included. Now, I have seen personally in several companies where the final inspection are being conducted by some equipment, an AI tool or certain modernized equipment. So if it is done by any equipment, then it is can be considered as a final inspection. But otherwise, it should be done by independent person. So it is a new inclusion of a new requirement of any automated system. Externally owned property, actually they changed the title. Previously, you remember they call it customer supplied property. So in customer supplied property, they changed the name to externally owned property, which basically extended the scope, because it's not only customer owned property, it can be any other person. It can be your supplier. It can be any government organization. Supplier in what sense? Because sometimes like for example, some your NDE inspection companies get taking their equipment, so and they are in your premises, so they will be considered as externally owned property. Sometimes calibration companies are coming with their master equipments, so they are also being considered as an externally owned property. And now it is also include the intellectual property and data that is not publicly available. What is intellectual property? It can be standards, it can be specifications, it can be quality plan. So those related with your either with your customer or your supplier or any other party, if they are not in your control, they will be considered as the externally owned property. So it can be a person, it can be an equipment, it can be a document. All of them will be considered as externally owned property. Management of change, there is an overall changes is there. The management of change procedure shall address the point A to F, which is in blue. Description of and the need for the change which is being done. Availability and allocation of resources. Potential risk. I was mentioning that whatever the risk. So this is the risk-based thinking here. Review, approval, and implementation of the change. Notification, how you are notifying the change. Verification of the completion of the MOC activities and impact on the quality management system. If you compare it with the previous, some things are required in the previous standard as well in the 9th edition. But now in the 10th edition, they have rephrased it and included some more application as well. So it's being a little bit changed with respect to the overall requirement according to the 10th edition. In customer satisfaction, only one thing, which is they have changed the word. The organization shall maintain a documented procedure. Previously, it was to measure customer satisfaction, which is being changed from to measure to monitor now. So what is the difference between to measure and to monitor? Very interesting. Measure means that you are just have to calculate that what is your customer satisfaction rate. For example, previously, you were getting customer satisfaction survey or any other method, and you are saying that our customers are 80% satisfied or 90% satisfied, and then you are just showing to the auditor. That's basically measure. So requirement was the measure, but now they are saying that you have to monitor it as well, which means you have to, although you were setting the KPIs, but now you have to monitor that how you your customer satisfaction rates are going up and down. So monitoring means that you need to see the trends of your customer satisfaction, how the customer satisfaction is being improved or not improved. And definitely it will be a very important input in your management review as well. Internal audit, interesting part here, they have uh, taken out one very clear misconception, because previously it was just mentioned within a 1 year time period you have to do the audit, and sometimes auditors were giving non-conformity. A previous audit was conducted, for example, on 25th September 2022, and then if you conducted 1 day after that, uh, they were raising a non-conformity against you. But now they are clearly mentioning, you see on the first line in blue color, 12 months, not later than the end of the same calendar month as the prior year audit, which means if you have conducted your last audit in the month of September, you can still finish your audit within the same month. So it's not the date, it's more clarified with respect to the month now. So the entire quality management system does not need to be audited at the same time or on the consolidated audit. Previously, it was not clear as well. And which I also recommend, whenever you are conducting internal audit, it's better to conduct the audit in distribute in several months. So whole cycle will be distributed. It will be conducted in more comprehensive manner, because what I have observed when I was conducting the audit for API, people are facing challenges in conducting the audit, making the reports, making the report. When the entire quality management system is not audited as an consolidated audit, the time between the audit for each audit quality management system shall not exceed 12 months. So it is the requirement. Uh, the next one is the analysis of data. The organization shall maintain a documented procedure for the identification, collection, and analysis of data, which is to demonstrate the suitability and effectiveness. And the new thing which they have added is the audits of the organization by external parties as well. So previously it was not added there. So that's how it is added now, with the analysis of data for the external parties, audit of organization by external parties, which include API, any of your supplier audit, means your customer audit, or any third party audit, you can also include it there. In corrective action, you have to add the criteria for determining when the corrective action process is initiated, the time period, and the actual things. And then, as I mentioned in the risk management, that you have to update the risk and opportunities determining during the planning stage, if necessary. So whenever at the end of the closing of any corrective action, you have to identify the risk. So any risk which is identified, you have to include in your risk register, and then you have to evaluate similar or potential non-conformities, which is in implementing or reduce the likelihood of the occurrence as appropriate. So these were the changes which were I identified in the beginning. So now I am just refreshing them, and I'm just concluding it in my last slide. What are the changes, which this slide I showed in the beginning as well, that the first thing which is done is the alignment with regard to the ISO 9001-2015. You observed during my presentation that majority of the changes are with regard to the alignment of the ISO 9000. The big change in the scope of the activities, that any company who's providing any products or services which is giving to the oil and gas industries, now it is included in the scope of the activities as well. And that's how the definition is also being changed for the product, which is being added as as the service also. So the product or service both are being added there. Retention time period has been extended to 10 years, and previously it was 5 years. A lot of references of the outdated versions has been given to the ISO 9001 2015. Previously, it was only 9000 2005, 2000 basically. 5. More clarification with the validation of process, which I just explained, that which are the minimum requirement for the validation of processes. And there are certain revised wording around the product inspection also for the final acceptance of the process, which include any AI technology or any other things. And supplier evaluation process also, there is a change that you cannot only depend on the first article inspection. Preventive action has been totally removed because risk management is being implemented in more effective manner. There are certain definitions being added there, and there are certain alternative to the quality management system also, which means that there are certain things which basically not included. But I said that if you are giving the uh, quality manual outside the quality management system, I would not recommend it. But if you want to do it, uh, it's your choice. So you can do that. This is basically, and also that was another change, which was about the management representative, that there is no more requirement as such for the management representative. But I must say that you should include it in the system as well. So these are all the requirement which I just concluded there. So if you have any question, one by one, you may ask any question if you have. Do you have any question? I would see in the chat. Do one thing. I'm writing my email address here, okay, in my chat. So if you have any question or any other question, multiple questions, you may ask. You can see. You can send me. You can note down my email address. So you can send me the. You got my email address here. Just a minute. This is my email address. Whoever has any question, please send me the question. I will be happy to respond to you. What is next now? The next action will be, I think many of you have already done the 10th edition. Whoever in the process, you have to do it a pre-assessment. First of all, if you want to get it done by us, we can do a pre-assessment audit for you also. And if you need any relevant consultancy or document preparation, we can also do that. And we can also help you in defining any of the spec of API 6A, 16A, 16D, anything. And also with regard to the final pre-assessment audit, we can also help them. Thank you very much. And we are looking forward to be in touch with you in our next programs as well. So thank you very much for joining, all of you, to be here. and I will, we are just signing off.